My Lai Massacre, a stain in the history of the Vietnam War. On March 16, 1968, during the peak of the Vietnam War, one of the most brutal massacres in modern war history occurred in My Lai, a small village in Quang Ngai Province, central Vietnam. This attack, carried out by the U.S. military, claimed the lives of hundreds of innocent civilians and became one of the darkest chapters in the Vietnam War. The My Lai Massacre reflects the brutality and the long-lasting consequences of the Cold War conflict. The context of the Vietnam War. By the late 1960s, the Vietnam War had reached its most intense phase. The U.S. military, under the leadership of President Lyndon B. Johnson, was heavily involved in an effort to suppress the communist movement in South Vietnam and prevent the spread of communism across Southeast Asia. One of the primary strategies employed by the U.S. military was the Search and Destroy campaign, aimed at eliminating Viet Cong forces. However, this approach led to immense civilian casualties. My Lai was targeted as part of Operation Wheeler Wallawa, commanded by the 23rd Infantry Division of the U.S. Army. Military leaders believed that the village was a stronghold for Viet Cong forces. As a result, they ordered an assault on the village without distinguishing between combatants and civilians. The attack and massacre. When the U.S. military entered My Lai on the morning of March 16th, they encountered minimal resistance. Instead of engaging the enemy, they began a brutal assault on the civilian population. Hundreds of innocent villagers, mainly women, children, and the elderly, were killed in a horrific manner. Reports indicate that at least 347 people were killed during the attack, although some estimates claim the number could be as high as 500. U.S. soldiers committed unspeakable acts, including the rape of women, the shooting of children, and the execution of elderly people. The village was burned to the ground, and the property of the villagers was destroyed. The bodies of the victims were left out in the open, unburied, making the massacre a profound wound in the hearts of the Vietnamese people. Cover-up and resistance. After the attack, the U.S. military attempted to cover up the events. A report was filed claiming that the operation had been a success, killing a large number of enemy forces. However, some of the soldiers involved in the massacre began to feel uneasy about their actions. One of the key figures in bringing the truth to light was Hugh Thompson, a U.S. Army helicopter pilot. Thompson, who witnessed the brutality of the attack, decided to intervene. He demanded that the killing stop and tried to evacuate the surviving villagers. With his crew, Thompson removed the remaining civilians from the danger zone and reported the incident. The exposure and investigation. After the massacre was revealed, journalists and investigators began digging deeper into the incident. Despite the U.S. military's attempts to downplay the severity of the event, reports from soldiers involved and the intervention of Hugh Thompson helped bring the truth to light. A military investigation was launched, and only Lieutenant William Calley, the commanding officer of the unit involved in the massacre, was charged with murder. Calley was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison, but his sentence was later reduced, and he served only a few years before being released. International reaction and consequences. When the My Lai massacre was made public, it sparked a wave of outrage not only in the U.S. but also worldwide. The massacre became a symbol of the brutality of the Vietnam War and contributed to the growing anti-war movement in the United States. It was one of the key reasons why many Americans called for an end to the war. For the Vietnamese people, the My Lai massacre was a painful and irreplaceable loss. Many families lost loved ones, and the village of My Lai became a symbol of the devastation that the war had caused to the Vietnamese population. The massacre not only resulted in the loss of life, but also left a profound psychological scar on the people. Legacy and lessons learned. The My Lai massacre serves as a stark reminder of the inhumanity that war can bring to innocent civilians. It is a lesson about the long-lasting consequences of military conflict, the importance of protecting human rights, and the need to always pursue truth in times of war. For the U.S. military, it remains a stain on its history, reflecting the mistakes made during the war and the lack of control over military conduct. Today, My Lai is commemorated each year on March 16th, with memorials held to honor the victims of the massacre and remind future generations of the horrors of war. The My Lai massacre remains an important part of Vietnam's history and serves as a universal lesson on the necessity of peace and respect for human rights in all circumstances. Conclusion. The My Lai massacre is one of the darkest events in the Vietnam War, reflecting the brutality of warfare and the long-lasting impact it has on both those directly involved and innocent civilians. It also stands as a powerful lesson for the world about the importance of protecting humanity, upholding human rights, and the need for accountability in times of war.
Cho chú ý, bang! Đồ dạc 2805, 2805, 2805, có thằng bằng 231, 231.